Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it is the April 8th school committee meeting, and we'll start with the reading of the mission statement. Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. Items of interest to the superintendent.
Thank you. I have one to thank one of our high school teachers and two students for presenting at the Department of Education's Kairos conference, and that was on March 19th in Megan Bullier, and we had Colby Thompson and Shelby Johnson. After the commissioner's visit back in February, he invited Megan to present as part of looking at the moving forward for the vision of education in Massachusetts and the example of the programs that she has here at Danvers High School through DECA. So we're very proud of them. I was able to see their presentation that morning, and we got to listen to a early morning keynote presenter about 21st century learning.
Great. Okay, anybody on the school committee have anything? Nope. Everybody good? Anybody in the audience? Nobody? All right, then we will go to Clea.
Hello. At Great Oak, our kindergarten students are exercising their super reader powers. They have pointer power, where they point to each word. They have sound power, where they break apart the sounds and words. And they have persistence power, where they reread, keep trying, and work with a partner to practice. Our kindergartners are becoming avid readers. In math, kindergartners are breaking apart the teen numbers and learning addition facts with 5. Our fourth graders just finished up working on a fraction unit, where they learned how to order fractions from least to greatest, even fractions with uncommon denominators. They created equivalent fractions, converted improper fractions, and ordered fractions on a number line. The students know there are many ways to solve a math problem, and they are practicing sharing their thinking with each other and trying new ways of solving problems. At Highlands, kindergarten students just finished up a how-to writing unit, where they showed off their skills of all they knew how to do. Some topics included how to walk your dog, and how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They've recently started their opinion writing unit. Some opinion topics they've discussed are not running in the hall and why we shouldn't hide books in our classroom. We can't wait to see what other opinions they come up with. In art class, students in grades 4 and 5 came up with a single inspiring word to describe themselves, wrote it in cursive, and then did a consecutive outline with marker. When they were all done with the words, they connected them to make a consecutive line of words. The words hung all the way up and down the hall to the art room. Some of the words the students used were listen, believe, shine, pride, discover, and thrive. At Riverside, on March 22nd, students participated in the 4th annual science fair. Over 100 students from kindergarten to 5th grade had the opportunity to share their amazing experiments and explain the scientific process to their classmates and adults. In addition, Riverside collaborated with students from Danvers High School who had also shared experiments about physics and parts of the human body. In all, experiments were thoughtful and interesting. With this year's implementation of Amplify Science curriculum, Riverside students are fully engaged in science. Thank you to Ms. Carlson, Ms. Swindle, Ms. Hopkins, and Ms. McCalgett for leading and organizing the fair. At Smith, as part of their social emotional learning goal, the Smith teachers are piloting a new morning meeting format. The goals of the morning meeting include to build community and a sense of belonging in the classroom, to build trust and set a positive tone for learning, to merge social and academic learning, to practice and reinforce key academic and social skills. The students are reciting the Pledge of Allegiance as well as the DPS mission statement every day, just like we did over the PA system. In addition, they are including a greeting, a mindfulness activity, a sharing component, and other activities. Thus far, students have been very excited about this new morning meeting format. Smith students are looking forward to their science fair, which will take place on Wednesday, April 10th. To date, there are almost 80 students in grades K through 5 who have signed up. The goal of this year's event was to link individual projects to the new Amplify Science curriculum. All participants will receive a STEM kit from the Smith Pack. At Thorpe, one of their science units that 4th graders are studying is energy conversions, blackout in Ergstown. Students act as systems engineers for a fictional town that experiences frequent blackouts. This is relatable for our students because many have experienced power outages themselves. Throughout the unit, students are exposed to possible reasons why an electrical system may fail. Students begin by learning all about systems in general. In order for a system to function, each part has to perform its own function. Students have an opportunity to build their own simple electrical system using solar panels. Next, student learns about different forms of energy and sources of energy. While energy cannot be created or destroyed, it begins at a source and can be converted from one form to another. Finally, students argue for the best solution for improving Ergstown electrical grid. The unit is very hands-on, providing students with opportunities to collaborate and build, analyze, and simulate systems throughout. The SEL program at Thorpe is a co-taught program that cycles through each grade level for 1 half-hour block every 3 weeks. Each cycle focuses on one of the main core components of SEL: self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Students participate in activities such as small group discussions on multimedia examples, whole class mindfulness activities, journaling, or group games and exercises rooted in the district's Open Circle and mindfulness programs. Each week, students make a goal and put into practice one of the skills and concepts taught during the block. Over time, the program aims to improve the social-emotional learning and competencies of students in various settings during the school day. At HRMS, each year as part of HRMS's Positive School Climate Program, Project Talk, the entire school engages in a community event. This year, Project Talk is bringing back its school-wide lip dub event. The entire school has been working on signs, banners, and other aspects of the performance. Practices were held during this month's Project Hawk meeting on April 3rd, and the performances will be filmed by DCAT on May 8th. In 8th grade English language classes, students have begun their Investigative Journalism Writing Workshop unit. In this unit, students will assume the role of reporters, learning to make observations and important moments and incidents in their communities. As students begin to identify patterns and similarities among these incidents, they will select a topic to investigate in depth, creating a newscast highlighting an important issue to them. And at Danvers High School, we want to recognize some of our amazing students-athletes we have at DHS. Max Leet, for example, became the first DHS student to become an All-American in wrestling after his performance at Nationals at Virginia Beach. Max also earned a Boston Globe All-Scholastic Honors to go along with his successful state title defense. Kudos to Shelby Johnson for being named Salem State Student Athlete for DHS. One example of project-based learning at Danvers High School is students in our Project Lead the Way Principles of Biomedical Science course completing an industry challenge on the future of diabetes management. Students submitted work on their design and received feedback from experts in the field, including the Mass General Diabetes Research Center, Joslin Diabetes Center, and Charles River Medical Associates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clea. And now it's information from you.
Thank you. We have our Danvers Pride presentation first, and I'm happy to welcome our Holton Richmond Middle School with our principal, Adam Federico, and 7th grade teachers and students, and Ellen Ferrick, our curriculum director.
Good evening. We're really excited to share with you this evening our 7th grade World Geography team's Student Podcast Challenge project. As you know, as part of the district strategic plan, we've been working on student engagement and project-based learning, and that has included being engaging in a study group at Holton Richmond with over 20 faculty members. So a few of those faculty members, or a few of those study group members rather, are part of the 7th grade World Geography team. And so one morning on the way to work, actually one of them was listening to NPR and heard that they were having this student podcast challenge. And I think by the end of that day, they had already kind of developed the framework for how they were going to create this project to get students involved, to expose them to an authentic audience. So I'm going to introduce Lauren Lynch, Karen Butterworth. The third member of their team, Teresa Oakes, couldn't be here this evening, but they and many of their students will come up and tell you all about it.
So I'm Karen Butterworth. This is Lauren Lynch. Thank you very much for having us to talk about our podcast project. So Ms. Fair covered a lot of what I was going to say to introduce us, which is fine because that means I get to just play you the beginning of a podcast that one of our groups made. So I'm going to
the Amazon rainforest, you may think that it's all birds chirping and leaves blowing. Well, that's inaccurate, because now it's wood getting chopped down and the smell of burning trees. Today we have an expert on the Amazon that we will be asking questions about deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. Welcome, Sari Gomez from Brazil and Aaron Cullen in interviewing.
Oi todos, obrigado por me receber. Hi everybody, thank you for having me.
Okay, so thank you. We've been doing a project on land use conflict in the Amazon for many years. It started off as a news show, became videos, and so we were looking to change it up. Teresa Oakes is the one who stumbled upon the NPR challenge, and we really wanted to start aligning ourselves with project-based learning, so this was perfect. The goal that we put out to our students was to try to collaborate in small groups of around 4 students to create a podcast that would inform the public about the conflicts going on in the Amazon rainforest. Before starting the project, students all learned about the 6 different groups that are all vying for resources within the rainforest, and then they had to decide which groups they wanted to focus on for their podcast.
So one nice thing about NPR having the challenge is they had a lot of resources that we could draw on as we were sort of on the fly changing this project. And so we came up with these sort of 2 questions to get things started. And one was thinking about like these 21st century skills, you're working in groups, you're collaborating, what is that going to look like? So what does balanced group work look and sound like was something we started off the project with. And then we wanted to make sure that we were also getting in the content and the students were working to communicate that content. So thinking about how are we going to make sure that our story is fair to the people that we're representing who are, not here, and then the ideas about deforestation that the kids had been learning about. So we were able to borrow and adapt some of those guidelines to fit our own curriculum. So I'm going to invite my students up now from the foster team to come on up and tell a little bit about how they got started making the decisions that they needed to make as a group to develop their podcast.
I'm Abby, this is Suri, and we're going to talk about some of the decisions we made to create our podcast. Our group worked together by compromising when we disagreed and listened to each other's ideas and trying to include everyone.
As a group, we had to make decisions about the purpose, the structure, the settings, the characters, and group roles for our podcast. The purpose of our podcast is to inform people about the deforestation in Brazil because it is the most open-ended option. It gave us the freedom to explain what we learned.
Our structure was an interview. We chose the interview because we are capable of doing it with the resources we were given.
We decided on our characters based on our strengths. I was interviewed mainly because we thought I fit the role and I spoke Portuguese. We wanted to use that to our advantage. Abby was an interviewer because she was up for it and it fit her. Will was the main host because he had the voice and personality for it, and David was the translator. We divided the group roles by asking what we all preferred. Abby and I were the script writers and tech editors. Will, with the help of David, were the tech editors. I chose to be the script writer because I liked typing. Will was interested in being the tech editor. David and Abby helped out when needed.
As you can see, we had to make a lot of group decisions. We were successful because we listened to each other's ideas.
Thank you, guys. Good job. All right, so now I'm going to invite Mrs. Lynch.
Yes, next we'll have the page team come up and talk about what typical classes were like as they prepared. So I have Grant Hunt, Connor Savage, and Samantha Flores. Please come up.
At the beginning of the class, we were given a goals to help us focus on work.
One of the most we would break up, most days we would break off into two groups. The tech people would work on the Soundtrap app, would allow us to record. The writers worked on the script.
This slide shows the beginning of our script. You can see we included a question to lead to get the audience's attention. We stated the purpose of our podcast, which was to explain how loggers are largely responsible for deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. We also learned that many podcasts tell the audience what they will learn by listening to the full show. We also added this in. During the class, the tech people had to learn how to edit Soundtrap and add sounds over each other's voices to make it sound harmoniously. Here's a part of ours.
Help to talk to us. We'll see you soon. Now that we've heard how harmed environmentalists are by these loggers, it's time to talk to Grant, a logger himself, to see how he feels about doing this to the rainforest. Again, we're live from the rainforest, but with a logger himself. This is Grant, everyone. Look, he's cutting down the trees now. Grant, how do you feel about destroying the forest? Destroying the forest? We're trying to make a living. I mean, us loggers are not destroying a forest. We're
Stop there. We got a sense of how they added in sound effects to their script. Okay, and then we have one final group.
The Rebecca Nurse team is going to come up. We have 2 students. We have Tito Velasquez and Bria Robinson. Do you guys want to come on up?
We originally had 4 people in our group, but only 2 of us were here today. And we were all assigned we were each assigned a question. My question was, what were some of the individual challenges we had as a group? And we all thought that we had like a challenge of using different voices, because some of us weren't comfortable using that. And some of us contributed more to the podcast than others. And then on some days, the technology difficulties, because one day the whole entire podcast got deleted, and we all worked together to have the results that we had now.
Throughout all the time that we worked on this, we faced ups and downs. But one of the good things that happened, that our team was really well with bringing up new ideas and to make this project really creative, and by really expressing ourselves. We faced absences of our teammates almost every day, so we had to figure out how to fill each other's jobs, kind of like a next man up kind of deal. And at the beginning, we had some trouble making some decisions, but we soon learned how to work as a group and how to compromise as a group.
Okay, so Tito has his on his phone, so we're going to see if it will play, and you can hear the ending of theirs.
This and hit the phone. Oh, he's got a new phone.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Whose are you on? Did that work?
Yes.
Right up.
Do you want? Okay. Was that the very ending? Oh, like,
I thought that was.
that's okay. The very ending. Thank you. Good job.
So the way we encourage the students to end their podcasts was with a call to action to their audience. So like, make a decision. What's your opinion? What are you going to go to do to help these issues in the Amazon rainforest? So trying to take this issue that they've been learning about that can feel really distant and make it more immediate to their audience. Sort of the goal for us, I think, was to help it make it more immediate for them as well. So, yeah. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Any podcast questions or comments? Mary Beth?
Are the podcasts available for everyone to hear?
That's a great question. That's something that we need to work with technology about, is being able to actually post them so everyone can hear them. Right now, they're all on our own accounts and on Soundtrap.
do the other classes, do you share them with the other classes?
So the students actually voted per class. They listened to like 5 in each class. They voted on a winner, and that's how we decided what was submitted. So we submitted about 15 podcasts to NPR.
When do you hear back from them?
I don't know.
So the challenge
yeah,
just
concluded.
concluded at the end of March. So they just had a recent update. They had over 5,000 entries. So we'll wait. It's a national phenomenon.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You all did awesome, and listening to them, they sound so professional. Makes me want to listen to them. So if you ever find a way for them to be heard, I would love to hear them. So great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Eric?
Yeah, I love the combination of learning about subject matter, actually, because they have to obviously understand what's going on in the rainforest. And then also sort of take that and then work together as a group collaboratively to come up with something that is at least somewhat polished and tries to be fair to both sides. So you've got a critical thinking piece in there. So it sort of hits all the bases of how we want students learn these days. So I think it's great. You guys all did great. And yeah, I'd listen to the podcast too.
Yeah, I thought it was great as well. Last month when we were here, the high school students presented about a program that they're doing where they're submitting writing to the New York Times. And some of them have been published in the New York Times. There's actually an article about it in this week's Danvers Herald, which is great. So to be able to carry that on at the middle school with podcasts with NPR is fantastic. Podcasts are becoming more and more popular every day. There's, a gazillion podcasts out there for every possible interest. So I think it's a great real life experience. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Dave said. Podcasts, webinars, webcasts are all growing exponentially in terms of digital. So I'm glad we can incorporate the learning objectives that we have, in a school environment to that sort of modern way of thinking. And the call to action, I mean, that's something you would see on any, good digital website or any sort of podcast as well, too. So kudos for that. So thank you.
Yeah, great job, kids. You did a great job. I would love to hear the podcasts. I just checked iTunes. It's not there. But
Not yet.
SoundCloud.
But yeah, maybe we can put them on the website.
Yes.
So, but from the little snippets we heard, they sound like real podcasts. So you guys did a great job. Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll take a little moment to just transition so our parents and our students can head back. This is a nice sort of preview also of some summer work that our teachers with Mary Wormers and Keith have put together a project-based learning as part of our summer work with professional development, and then moving into sort of the flexible learning environments also. So really pulling together the work that we've been doing in the first year of the strategic plan and having more professional development with our faculty over the summer. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Great.
Okay.
Now we'll come back to the high school. It's wonderful. I think we've had high school here almost every meeting, I think, this year. So this is our annual community service update, and we have a new community service advisor, Mr. Will Black, who is going to bring us through some updates of this year's work.
Hi, folks. I think it's been a number of years since I spoke with you. I think the last time it was at Town Hall with the advisory program, so it's nice to be here. I did take on the role as community service coordinator this year, and with communication with Dr. Colombino and Mr. Embley, we've made some changes to try and make the program a little bit more clear, a little bit more transparent to the students as they try and achieve that 40-hour graduation requirement. So I just want to kind of go through a few things that we've done over the course of the year. So the first thing we did was kind of redesign the web page on the DHS website. It was a little cluttered and it was a little cumbersome, and the students weren't really utilizing it as much. So we've kind of simplified it, chunked it out into the main segments, including a really clear narrative as to the rules of what constitutes community service at the high school. Some students were doing wonderful volunteer work, hours and hours of volunteer work, but unfortunately it wasn't classified as community service. So I think there was a little bit of a disconnect as to whether it was truly community service, serving the greater community, as opposed to some really noble volunteer work for certain private sector companies. So we try to simplify that language, make the kids really realize and think about the decisions they were making before they chose their projects. On there also, we have some hot links to some new real-time documentation that I've presented. We've gone 100% electric this year, so no more of the paper forms are being submitted in person. It really simplifies the documentation and the kind of the kids being able to bring the hours to my attention, and I'll go through that a little bit as well. So the first thing we did was, in order to submit hours after a completion of a service or completion of a project, the old way was fill out a form, have the supervisor fill out the form, get signatures, get dates, and it was becoming kind of a little bit cumbersome and a little bit lost in the mix. So one of the biggest challenges that Dr. Colombino kind of put onto me was to try and simplify it and make it a little bit more streamlined. So we went to a secure Google form, which I designed and kind of redesigned over a while over the summer. And the students actually have access to this form in each of the class Google Classrooms, as well as a link on the high school website. And it's only accessible via a danvers.org address. So there were no bogus submissions or any outside interference in terms of people just trying to go on there and joke around. So on the Google form, the students fill out their information, fill out their service information, along with supervisor contact information and the number of hours they're submitting for. That gets submitted to me, and I designed a little bit of a backward audit in there. And upon submission, an automatic email is also sent to the supervisor asking for confirmation of that service. So I get a separate input assuring confirmation that the service was legitimate and okay. If I don't get that, that allows me to follow up personally with the phone numbers and the emails. So it kind of streamlines a lot of kind of the constant having to check with students and having to check with the supervisors. And it also allows me to have real-time access with a running Google Sheet with all that information stored on the Google Cloud. So it's really quite nice to be able to organize the Google Sheet by a year of graduation, by a service type, by a name as well, so we can see who's repeatedly doing this type of service and what type of students might need a little bit of help in order to get some more opportunities. So that's been a really big help. It's taken a little bit of time to get the students kind of turn on to that, but we've kind of removed all links to the old form and really promoted it with the Google Classrooms. Also, to help the students, we're really trying to promote events. Some students struggle to find community service or on their own. So when opportunities come across my desk, I've been networking a lot with the local community. I've produced a live Google Sheet that is also linked on the website, linked on the Google Classrooms, and everything in green are the current events that the students can sign up for. There's often links for sign-ups, or the students can come to me during my office hours and try and sign up for the events with me as well. We use announcements daily with Mr. Embley for any upcoming community service opportunities, and also the new TV system in terms of projecting those on the daily slideshow. So that's been very helpful. Students, I often see multiple names logged in at once, checking that form out and seeing what's just expired, what's coming up, what can they do. And it gives them a good opportunity to kind of hopefully not labor on the fact that they have to get these hours done until the last minute. One great partnership that we've developed is with the Rotary Club in Danvers. Especially this year, we've developed a new partnership, which is a Student of the Month. So we honor one student each month at their regular luncheon at the Danvers Port. That really helps us with networking for potential internship opportunities with the seniors. It's not exclusively for seniors, but any student that we deem that month has done some really good service, logged some good hours, is eligible to be put forward for that recognition. And they go to the Danvers Port, have a lunch, and kind of get a little recognition for their community service. So we're trying to kind of build up the community service, make it more available, but also have students think about how it can tailor to their potential career and college readiness, as well as the internship at the end of senior year. And then finally, in terms of refinements for next year, going with the kind of convenience factor and the 21st century technology piece, I'd like to try and figure out some sort of way for electronic signups for events, so that personally I don't have tons and tons of kids popping into the room at certain. I try to constitute office hours, but DHS students being DHS students, they kind of pop in whenever they want. So that's one of my goals. I really want to try and tie students' thoughts and choices to their internship opportunities to try and build that networking early, and also try and keep the kids on a deadline in terms of understanding that they really should be getting 10 hours per year enrolled at DHS. So a full scheduled student would get the 40 hours and then go from there. So a couple of refinements going forward, but I think we've made some good progress to try and streamline everything so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple.
Good.
All right. There are some students that have to do extra community service hours for National Honor Society and things like that. Does this funnel through the same system?
We do, well, Miss Anketel and I are very closely related in terms of geography, so we actually do have a good communication in terms of that. But the NHS hours are separate, and students are often very clear with me as to whether they want those hours submitted for NHS or the DHS hours. So sometimes, depending on if they've double dipped, they'll come and communicate. But usually it's pretty clear whether they're submitting them on paper for the NHS or electronically for graduation.
And does it track, I assume each student has a page or something. Does it track what they've done so they know how many hours they have to continue?
So part of my job is the data input. So once I go through the submissions for authenticity and make sure I can approve them, then I submit them into PowerSchool. So usually once a month, and now as the kind of doors are closing on the seniors, I'm doing them once a week. I will input them into PowerSchool, and then the kids can log into PowerSchool. It's a little bit tricky the way the PowerSchool is set up, but the kids can track their hours via the inputs I put in. Yeah. You just have to add them up along the path.
So you can't track them right in this Google form. You have to then transform.
I do separately. I do keep a track of each of the classes. I can alphabetize and track them via hours. But in terms of publicity for the students to see themselves, PowerSchool is our portal for that data.
Oh, okay.
But I do have internally. I do have them all separated out by class as well.
I was just trying to think of a way to save you a step so you don't then have to transfer them, into PowerSchool if it automatically, if I do 2 hours and I know I only have 38 left, if I went on to this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there are some movements from Google to try and have data, like for example, for the Google Classroom, when you grade assignments in there, to have the data imported into grading software, but I'm not sure if there's that compatibility between Google and PowerSchool as of yet. Okay. But most of the students are very keen on PowerSchool anyway, and they can see just by looking at, so if there was 10 inputs, they just add up all the hours that are in there. A lot of them are zeros if they're not doing them for a week or a month, but it might be like 10, 12,
Okay. And then do you have trouble getting confirmation from the organizations that the students are doing the volunteer work with? I know you said it sends an automatic email.
So the email gets sent out with a summary of what the student submitted for.
Yep.
So, and then there is a very brief Google form that I ask the supervisors just to say, was this legitimate? Can you confirm with this? And there's a quick question at the end saying, would you like further follow-up, yes or no? And sometimes they say, I would like to talk about this. It doesn't seem quite right. Or most of the time it's yes, it's okay. So in general, the supervisor Google Forms come back no problem. And then it's kind of up to my judgment when the kids submit the original data as to whether I need to call them in and ask about what exactly it was, or whether it was for a non-profit town religious entity. So it was in terms of falls under our umbrella of community service. And that's another good thing about having the internal emails. As a teacher, I can email all the students across the Danvers.org network and reach them that way. And then they can come and see me after school if they have any follow-up questions.
All right, great. I think that was it. Thank you.
All set. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Good.
Do we have an evaluation process, not for the students so much, but for the program itself? Meaning, we've had this for a number of years, and I imagine every once in a while you take a look and say, is it the right number of hours? Are the students getting something out of this? You know, are the projects meaningful? Do you take feedback from the supervisors and students even about what they think about the requirement, the process, all of that? Like, how do we evaluate this program?
That's a very good point. For my first year, I've been kind of focusing on streamlining and going paperless, but it is something, I mean, up until now, the 40 hours were approved by the school committee, so we've been kind of taking it for that. And when we kind of explain that to the students in terms of it's only 10 hours enrolled per year, they don't seem to be that concerned that it's a huge burden on them. But I do think there is value in kind of, are you choosing projects that are beneficial to you, that are worthwhile to you, that you can invest in and really kind of become a stronger person from, and not just trying to race to the 40 hours in order to cross another thing off the list to graduate. And I think at times with certain students, there can be that disconnect there. And I think with kind of molding the whole student, we need to kind of work with them so that that piece of their graduation requirement is just as valuable as the education, just as valuable as all the other extracurriculars. And I think that's something we do need to work on in order to promote that and make it stronger.
Yeah, I just think it's in my own mind going forward, we always want to look at what we're doing and not just do it because we've done it, but do it because there's ongoing value to it. And the way to do that, it seems to me, is to take feedback and always be looking at what we're doing. So
yeah, and I'd like to look at that next year and frame it through the college career readiness piece. Yeah. We're doing a lot of work on that with our potential pathways, innovation pathways, and really preparing the kids for what they want to go on with. And I think if we can tie that to the community service, then they're going to have a much better idea of what they work well with, what they enjoy, and obviously those two tie very closely together. So.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anybody else?
Can I just quickly add to that? I think what Eric said is a really good point. I think, we need to look at these things periodically, so we're not doing, and I've said this before with other programs like Portfolio Day. Now we're looking at the internships. I just think it's really important. Just because we've always done something or done something for many years, I think we need to evaluate it every few years maybe to make sure it's worthwhile to do, or worth, if it needs to be changed. It's probably still worthwhile to do, but maybe in a different format. So that was a really good point. Thank you for asking that.
Anybody else? Good. So we'll let you get this all streamlined before we start killing you with these other questions. No, great. Thanks for the presentation. It's
great.
Appreciate it. Thank you very
Looks
much.
like it's moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to bring it to the district level, and Mary's going to give us a update from our SEL, Social Emotional Learning Visioning, some reflections of our day that we spent together with our community.
Great. So a week ago Thursday, on March 28th, we convened a forum to help us develop a vision for social emotional learning, or we call it SEL, in the Danvers Public Schools. We spent a full day together. I think it's very similar to the work we did back with Frank Locker when we were visioning for our strategic plan and visioning for the Smith School project. But this time, the focus was on, how to work on social emotional learning and develop a clear and coherent plan for the district. But before we could do that, we have to have a vision for what that plan might be, and that's what we did. So attendees, we grabbed a bunch of different stakeholders, and we had students, teachers, staff, and the staff included, student support, student service staff. We included teacher aides. We had Georgia from the cafeteria, because all people in our buildings are going to be working with our students and need to be understanding what the social emotional learning expectations are for kids. So she was there to help us vision as well. School secretaries or administrative assistants. We had parents, and those parents also did double duty. They were also community members as well, and town officials. We had a few of those, and then the administrators. So we all got together. We were mixed up in groups so that not one group of people were sitting together. So it really enabled us to have some good conversations around social emotional learning. We had a facilitator who came to work with us, Ramona Trevino. She was from the Essex County Learning Community Grant, and she was actually the deputy superintendent for the Austin Public Schools in Texas, and so she really worked to develop a strong social emotional learning program through an organization called Castle. So she helped us with a lot of those resources. She also engaged us in reading about some best practices of how some of these largest school districts have put in a strong social emotional learning component in their district from pre-K all the way through grade 12. So that was great to do that. She also engaged us in what they call a futures protocol. So thinking about what do we want to see for kids in the future around social emotional learning. And so we kind of put that together. And then we looked back to what our current state is. And we kind of brainstormed out like currently what was happening. And then we do it. The next step is to think, how do you get from your current state to the future that you really want for students? So we kind of worked on action steps there. So that was a really good activity to do. We have lots of information from that. I've worked with what we call the Social Emotional Learning Steering Committee after the meeting last Monday, and we kind of started to look at what are some of those steps. That's going to help us put together a plan for the district as we move forward. One of the ending activities was for each group to develop a bumper sticker around social emotional learning. So these were the bumper stickers. We had 8 groups, and so there are 8 slogans. So some of them are really great, taking off on the SEL, an acronym. We have students empowered to lead, or supportive educators plus engaged learners plus limitless opportunities equals SEL. So that was very interesting. Another one was Danvers Public Schools, where everyone matters. A really interesting one was, what's your definition of a success? Because we unpacked our strategic plan vision, and it ends, that every student goes on to, realize their definition of success. So it was very interesting to say, well, what does that really mean in Danvers? So she gave us a lot of good food for thought on that one. So someone turned it into the bumper sticker. And then finally, the last activity of the day was for all of us to think about actions we'll individually take to help move social emotional learning forward in Danvers and in the community. And so here are some of the bullet points that people shared with us. So, to create an inclusive environment across all Danvers schools, to be respectful of others' looks, thoughts, emotions, and feelings. So like really looking at honoring everyone's differences, weaving SEL into all lessons, advocate and encourage program alignment with SEL competencies, and then there's 5 competencies for existing school programs. So I thought it was a very successful event when I got together with the steering committee, which is about 15 teachers that was at this conference. They all were very excited. They just thought the energy that was in the room was really great, and we have a lot of good information to work with to start to, develop a plan.
And thank you. And Mr. Crane was able to represent school committee, so we thank Mr. Crane for spending the entire day with us also.
Any additional thoughts?
Yes, I thought it was a really important day, and I thought it was a day where a lot of things were accomplished. Overall impressions, I was struck by the enthusiasm and the sort of the commitment by everybody in the room. The students were really extraordinary. The students, I don't know how you particularly chose the students who were chosen, but clearly they were engaged, and they were for all levels. I believe we had elementary, middle, and high, and they were all participated. Some a little more nervous than others, but you had some that weren't shrieking violets at all. And so between that and the tremendous cross-section of the community and the school world, the district life, I think you really had input from so many different stakeholders that something good was bound to come out of this. The social and emotional learning piece, to me, it just gets more and more important, because it's really about creating an environment where every student feels valued and safe, and in that circumstance, they're going to be able to do their best learning. And what I thought was interesting, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe one of the research shows that in districts that have adopted a social emotional learning, and I want to say it was Austin, Texas, the testing that they have similar to MCAS increased in those schools where there was a commitment to social and emotional learning. Now, I'm not a big test guy. I don't think it's the only way to evaluate students, but it does seem to show that spending time on this particular idea, having this part of your environment and your DNA certainly helps the overall performance in terms of academics. And again, I'm a big believer that if you have students who come in ready to learn, feeling enthusiastic about their school they're in, engaged with each other and engaged with their teachers, you're going to get better results. It works that way if you're in a business, it works that way if you're in a school. So I'm glad to see us taking this on. I'm interested to see what the final plan will look like, but I think it was a very worthwhile day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eric. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments they would like to mention? Everybody good?
Just one quick question. What is, I mean, this is so important. I mean, I agree with Eric. But so what does the state have around guidance, requirements, regulations for this? I mean, when I think about this, I think of, look, there's regulations regarding nurses and counselors and, academics and curriculum. I mean, listing some of these things, I sort of feel like, okay, maybe if they don't have rules and regulations, then maybe we don't need to go that far. But they should have guidelines, I would think, that would say, look, you need this sort of support structure in place. You need to have, is it just, look, they are nowhere near ready to do that? Or, we just feel this is so important, we got to get ahead of it. Yes, the state might do it someday, but look, we're kind of at the forefront of doing this.
I think they are promoting it. I don't think they've given us guidelines on how to do it. They're, this organization that I call CASEL, it's CASEL.org, they have a lot of guidance on how to do it. And they were the ones that granted money to some big school districts to get this done, Austin, Texas being one of them. And that's, as Eric said, that was where they found an 11% increase in the student achievement of students in those districts when they implemented strong social emotional learning programs. The Department of Ed, though, knows it's very important. They've included social emotional standards in their content framework. So if you look at the mathematics framework, you're going to see some social emotional standards in there as well as learning. As you're learning math, you need to do, the group work and learning how to problem solve and working together. So they're building them right into the content standards. They've done it in English language arts and in science. They have a new health curriculum that's in development, and I think we're going to see a lot more coming out of that once that's released in draft form.
And we also have it now in the educator evaluation system that came out. The revised version was last summer. So all of our rubrics now have an SEL component to it also. I think the other, where the structure has been not so much for regulations or that type of support, but with inclusive practices. There's an entire guidebook for educators around inclusive practices. And then the work that we're also working on with multi-tiered system of support. They have many guidelines for that also.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it just seems so fundamental. It's just sort of like, kids got to have, food, you got to, have a safe, welcoming environment, structures in place to, help students at every level. So this is great. Glad we're at the forefront of it. Thanks.
All right, great. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Lisa and Keith, because you did it too.
Thank you. You were there too.
And you can
Thank
all
you.
be thankful that I wasn't part of it. So.
Okay.
All right, so
Move on to the
facilities.
concrete pieces of facilities.
So for the Smith School Building Committee met since our last meeting and had a introduction from the contractor W.T. Rich, where they introduced their team, gave an overview of what the project looks like from their perspective. There's lots of planning behind the scenes with all of the details, from playgrounds to cameras to where the plugs are going to be in the cafeteria for kids to charge their Chromebooks, to all those nitty gritty. Last week we had an opportunity for myself, with Tracy Mara, the principal, the assistant principal at Smith School, and 2 teachers, to go to a furniture show in Boston that was put on by the Association for Learning Environments. So really to get to go there and look at what furniture options may be for the school. So that was a unique opportunity for the teachers to participate and get some professional development and hear from a couple of national speakers. there. The site package to clear the site over the summer, which is really the first step, is out to bid now. There was a site visit today for potential contractors. So as of this summer, we'll really see the site start to take on a different physical appearance as we start up the work. The building committee will also be meeting again this Friday for the next meeting. For the Highland School roof, that project continues through the planning process. We have 60% design documents complete as of now. Over the next month, we'll be working on putting together bid documents and are still on schedule as long as town meeting approves the financing to complete the project this summer.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Is everybody good? Okay.
Sounds good.
Then we'll move to unfinished business and policy.
Thank you. This is the last month for our MASC overhaul of our policy manual. The superintendent recommends the approval of the review of sections K and L as per the MASC request for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, school calendar.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends the approval of the 2019-20 school year early release day calendar for a second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
New business.
Fundraising this evening, the superintendent recommends the approval of fundraising events for the DHS softball boosters, the DHS boys and girls track, and the girls lacrosse boosters.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Softball's looking to raise a lot of money, I saw in there. Good for them. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, communications.
Thank you. Communications for our North Shore Education Consortium. For the Board of Directors, we just voted the budget at last Wednesday's meeting. And so as soon as I have the final copy of that, we'll be getting that to all of our school committee members.
Okay, legislation, Eric?
I talked with Attorney Spiliotis' office today. Right now, it's all budget all the time. He said the House budget is going to be released at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday, and that they expect debate on the budget to start on the 22nd, and that the education funding is probably the primary item in the budget this year. So that's where most of the discussion is likely to take place. So, and I'm sure that will encompass the foundation budget discussions and, other proposals that are different between the Senate and the House. But it sounds like this budget's really going to be looking to address a lot of education issues. So more to come as the debate starts.
All right, thank you.
And Lisa and I had an opportunity to attend the Foundation Budget Committee. There's 4 different or 10 different proposals, all out of those recommendations, but we got to attend that at the State House and really see that. And it was nice to see the conversation between MTA, all the different unions, as well as MASS, the Superintendent's Association, and the legislators have productive conversations that day that started at 10. And I think we didn't stay the whole time, but ended at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So a full day of legislative testimony.
Great. All right, thank you. Deep.
Our April meeting is this Wednesday, April 10th, 7:45 at First Ipswich Bank. And that's it right now.
All right, Danvers Cares.
Danvers Cares, 3 big things. One is the Teen Health and Safety Guide, advanced copy. This is coming out Thursday? Thursday.
Danvers Herald.
In the Danvers Herald. So get a copy. This is really good. I've got an advanced copy and I've read it already. So I'm going to tell you, you want to do it too. Family Workshop Series. The last session is tomorrow, April 9th, 6 to 7:30. Again, that's at the Peabody Institute Library in the Gordon Room. And Light the Night Purple, Wednesday, May 15th. I'm just showing this so everybody can see it, but you can see this as well and lots of online things. Wednesday, May 15th as well. So 3 updates there.
Okay, great. CPAC, does anybody know when the next CPAC meeting is?
Mary does.
It is on, it was May 7th, I think.
May
is the
7th.
date.
Okay.
It is, I have it, of
May
course, I've
7th, yes.
written it right here. Yes, May 7th, and it will be on how to prepare for an IEP meeting.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
All right, and policy, I think we've done that. And human rights.
Yeah, just a regular slate of support that the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee has been supporting, including the United Nations, International Women's Day, and elimination of Racial Discrimination Day, supporting the Gay Pride Month, flag raising as well, which will be coming up soon, supporting scholarships for students, I believe again this year, for actions to make the school that they are part of more inclusive, which is great, and they are looking to redesign their website. Because I just looked at it, and they certainly could highlight a lot more of these really good things that they're doing. So
You
I know
should
that's
take
a big
that
thing.
on.
In my free time, I
don't have anything
I can do it. I'll do it right after
You're
the
a
meeting.
technology guy.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. Totally.
All right,
Sounds
great. Okay, minutes.
All right, I move to approve and release the minutes from the March 11th, 2019 regular school committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Budget and donations.
Before you have the monthly budget report for the month of March, I'm happy to report we remain on budget for the year. On Wednesday night, we will have our Finance Committee budget hearing. It is a packed evening, so I know the library, the vocational school, Essex Tech, ourselves, and I believe police and fire are all on the agenda for Wednesday night. So we look forward to that.
And rumor has it that there will be third.
Will be third?
Be third
Okay.
on the list after the library and Essex Tech. So whatever that means, I don't know what that means. All right, and personnel.
The monthly personnel reports primarily leaves of absences and long-term substitutes to fill those leaves.
Okay. And our next meeting is?
May 13th.
Does anybody have anything else?
I do.
Go ahead.
So before we adjourn, it's funny how the time flies. We'll be reorganizing at the next meeting. And so just want to thank you for your year as chair and leading us through some interesting times as always. So appreciate your service out there.
Thank you, Eric. And, I think I can say that it's a really easy job with this board. So thanks, everybody. All right, Dave.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, Danvers.